Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to admit, the moment I saw these summer previews for General Hospital, I got that familiar feeling longtime fans know so well. You know the one, the feeling that Port Charles is about to explode with secrets, heartbreak, and surprises that nobody sees coming. I've watched this show long enough to know that when the writers start dropping hints like these, they're usually setting the stage for a season that keeps us talking for months. And honestly, from everything I've seen so far, this summer looks like it's going to be one wild ride. The first thing that caught my attention was Jason Morgan's big return. I don't think this is just another comeback story. In my experience watching GH over the years, Jason always comes back carrying more than physical scars. The preview suggests that his time in captivity will leave a lasting mark on him, and that makes perfect sense to me. A person can survive a terrible ordeal, but surviving it and moving on are two very different things. What interests me most is how this experience may change Jason's outlook on life. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who quietly carry the heaviest burdens. I have a feeling we're about to see a version of Jason who is wrestling with emotions and memories that refuse to stay buried. With the milestone 16,000th episode approaching on July 13, it feels like the perfect moment for the show to launch a powerful new chapter for one of its most iconic characters. At the same time, I can't stop thinking about Anna Devane. Over the years, I've always admired Anna's strength, intelligence, and determination. But even the toughest people can reach a breaking point. The emotional damage she's endured recently appears to be changing her in ways that could shock everyone around her. What really stands out to me is the suggestion that Anna may return home with deadly motives. That's not a phrase GH fans take lightly. When someone like Anna starts operating from a place of pain instead of reason, things can become dangerous very quickly. As folks in America like to say, hurt people sometimes hurt people. I keep wondering whether Anna will be seeking justice, revenge, or perhaps something far more complicated. Then there's Valentine Cassadine, a man who never seems to find peace for very long. The news that he won't remain trapped at Steinmauer surprised me, but I don't necessarily see that as good news for him. In fact, I think his problems may only be getting started. Freedom can be a blessing, but in Port Charles, it can also place a target squarely on your back. Valentine's growing connection with Carly Spencer is where things become especially interesting. The moment Sonny Corinthos learns about their romantic involvement, the entire situation changes. Sonny is not the kind of man who simply sits back and watches events unfold. The fact that he's turning to Brick for help tells me he's already preparing to take action. Personally, I think this storyline has all the ingredients for a major summer conflict. Emotions are involved, old loyalties are being tested, and powerful people are making moves behind the scenes. Around these parts, we call that a recipe for trouble. Once Sonny decides something needs to be stopped, nobody involved can afford to relax. Another storyline that grabbed my attention involves Cassius Faison. After his Nathan West deception is exposed, most people would probably run as fast as they could. That's exactly why his decision to stay behind long enough to say goodbye to someone feels so important. To me, that choice reveals something deeper about his character. When someone risks everything for one final farewell, it usually means their heart is pulling them somewhere their head knows they shouldn't go. And that brings us to the question I've been asking myself ever since these spoilers surfaced. Could James West be the person Cassius wants to see before disappearing? The more I think about it, the more possible it seems. Beneath all the schemes, secrets, and dangerous games, General Hospital has always been at its best when it focuses on emotional connections. If James is indeed the one receiving that final goodbye, I can easily imagine a deeply emotional moment that leaves viewers reaching for tissues. Sometimes the scenes that stay with us aren't the explosions or the shocking twists. They're the quiet moments where someone realizes what truly matters just before everything changes forever. What really stands out to me right now is how fast things are about to spiral on Spoon Island. I've been watching General Hospital long enough to know that when a major confrontation is teased like this, it usually means somebody's life is about to change in a big way. Jocelyn Jacks being at the center of it all makes perfect sense to me. She's grown into someone who doesn't back away from danger, and I honestly think she could be the one who finally puts an end to Ross Cullum's dangerous run. At the same time, I can't ignore the pressure building around the WSB and Z keeping a close watch on Jocelyn. That alone tells me this isn't going to end cleanly. Carly, of course, is in full mother mode. I've seen her long enough to know she won't sit still while her daughter is involved with something this dangerous. She'll push, fight, and probably make things even more complicated, especially with her ongoing anger toward Jack Brennan still simmering underneath everything. Speaking of Brennan, his growing connection with Nina Reeves honestly surprised me, but I can see how it's happening. Two people with complicated pasts sometimes just find comfort in each other without planning it. Still, in Port Charles, those kinds of relationships rarely stay simple for long, especially with Brennan playing dangerous games involving Drew Kane. Lulu Spencer is heading straight into emotional shock territory once she learns how long Carly and Charlotte have been hiding Valentine. That kind of betrayal hits deep, especially for someone like Lulu, who's already been through so much. And the truth about Nathan actually being Cassius, that's the kind of reveal that doesn't just shock you, it shakes you for a long time afterward. On Sunny's side, everything is building toward a final clash with Jen Sidwell, and whenever Sunny is involved, I always worry about who gets caught in the middle. Justine Turner being in danger feels like one of those painful twists the show loves to throw in at the worst possible moment. Curtis Ashford is stuck in a tough position with no easy choice between a plea deal and a much harsher trial outcome. And just when things couldn't get more intense, Portia Robinson, facing a heated confrontation right before going into labor, feels like classic General Hospital chaos, everything hitting at once, with no room to breathe. Marshall Ashford is finally coming back to Port Charles, and I've got to say it feels like one of those warm moments in the middle of all this chaos. After everything that's been going on, his return feels like a bit of grounding energy for the Ashford family. I've always liked the way Marshall carries himself, calm, steady, the kind of presence that reminds people what really matters when everything else is falling apart. At the same time, there's real hope building around Britt Westbourne, and honestly, this is the kind of twist I love seeing on General Hospital. With Joe Fitzpatrick and Lucas Jones working together, it sounds like Britt might finally get life-changing news, maybe even the possibility that she doesn't have Huntington's after all. If that turns out to be true, I can only imagine the emotional weight lifting off her shoulders. But knowing this show, even good news never comes without complications. With everything happening around Cullum and Sidwell, I still think Britt's road ahead won't be completely smooth. Then we've got Laura Collins heading to Ireland to see Kevin Collins and Ace Cassadine. Now, in my experience watching this show, whenever someone leaves Port Charles for a quick visit, it usually means trouble is brewing back home. I get the feeling this trip is going to ripple through the town in ways nobody expects, especially when it comes to relationships and long-standing tensions. Trina Robinson's story also feels like it's shifting into a new phase. A rising career always brings attention, and not all of it is welcome. The idea of a stalking storyline makes me uneasy, but it also feels very real in the world of GH. And I've got to say, Gio Palmieri stepping up during her performance and possibly discovering his own musical path adds a nice, hopeful contrast to the darker storyline building around her. Ethan Lovett and Ava Jerome are another pairing I find myself paying attention to. There's something unpredictable about the way they keep saving each other, almost like they're being pulled into each other's orbit, whether they want to or not. But when Ethan's past catches up to him, I can already see Ava becoming the person who steps in at exactly the right moment. And if he really does open up to her about Phoebe, that could completely change the direction of their relationship. Meanwhile, the tension inside Port Charles's business world is just as messy. Tracy Quartermain and Lucy Coe fighting over deception sounds like classic power struggle energy, but Brooklyn's plan involving Willow Kane feels like the real emotional landmine. Once secrets like that come out, they don't just hurt one person, they shake entire families. I can already see Chase getting pulled into a situation where he has to set boundaries that aren't easy to enforce, especially when marriage and loyalty are on the line. And of course, Drew Kane always seems to find himself at the center of trouble, whether it's an accident or something more complicated. The idea of Gio saving him adds an interesting twist, but I don't think it changes the bigger picture. Drew has a way of turning every second chance into another storm. That could easily spill over into Alexis Davis and Willow in ways that nobody is ready for. Still, despite all the danger and emotional fallout, there's something exciting about this summer in Port Charles. New faces are arriving, familiar ones are returning, and even characters like Serena Baldwin coming back in a new form just adds to the feeling that everything is shifting at once. In my view, this isn't just another storyline cycle, it feels like a turning point where a lot of hidden tensions are finally about to break open.